Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FTU Life After the Military. I'm your host, Tony Rodriguez, and today I'm pretty excited because I get to have Marilyn on my podcast, formerly Captain Escobar. We did time again in Cell Block 8. Um, for those of you who don't know, that's the 98th Civil Affairs Battalion,
hmm
and I like to think that I met a lot of good people through some rough times.
Yeah, there were some rough times for sure.
So, Marilyn, what have you been up to since you left?
Well, I'm a mom now. I think that's the biggest update. It took me a while to decide if I wanted to have kids. For the longest time, I didn't, and CA the lifestyle just also doesn't um, you know, lead to that work-life balance. So after a while, yeah, decided to try out the mom thing. It's kicking my butt. It's not easy. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, so we went really back to back, yeah. And so had them back to back. Had the two under two going for a while. Thank God my mom decided to come out of retirement. She was back in El Salvador, so she had retired. She was a nanny for like 20 years in Baltimore and had packed up, moved to El Salvador, retired. And then I told her, Mom, I'm pregnant. She's like, I'm moving back. And my first reaction was like, no, like, no, I can't let this mom. But once the baby came and I realized how over my head I was like, oh my God, thank goodness. And she stayed with us and she moved to Hawaii with us, with her Dave's PCS. And yeah, it's been a lifesaver. But yeah, so became a mom and it's kicking my butt. It's not easy. So, if there's any other moms out there struggling, just know you're not alone. It is hard. It feels hard because it is hard. And then after I got out, I pretty much just went straight into working as a project manager. So as we were saying earlier, I feel like I landed that job just sheer luck. I remember being in command when I was in HHC command, and it must have been like after an inventory or something, but I was just hunched over my desk with I remember having like my head in my hands, and I had LinkedIn open, and I get a message, and it was a recruiter, and she said, "Hey, Marilyn, your profile fits some of the requirements we're looking for. We actually have a veterans program that helps transition veterans from the military to project management in clinical research." And I was like, oh, well, so never really, like, I knew what clinical trials were, but I never really considered it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. I'll talk to someone, see how I feel about it. And they had an info session, and it was in the middle of the week up in Raleigh. So I took leave and I showed up to the info session, and one of my soldiers is there too. It's like, ma'am, aren't you supposed to be at command and staff? I'm like, yeah, but I'm on leave. Listened to the info session. Sounded like a good opportunity because they talked about clinical trials and they talked about how, the big purpose of it is to get treatment to patients that need it faster. So that seemed like a good purpose. And when I was looking for my job, what I was going to do after the military, I knew I wanted something with purpose, something that was going to motivate me, something that when, you're just having a bad day, that you knew you were working towards something. And that's something that I like to think I found in the military. And I wanted to also have that in my next job and not just be to make money, because then I knew I would lose my motivation, and then, I wouldn't want to do it anymore. So I wanted a purpose. I was like, okay, I can get behind this purpose. I wanted something that would allow me to work remote because I went from being captain to being a military spouse. So that was a 180, and that's a challenge in itself. And I can talk about that all day long too, just how it challenges of being a military spouse and trying to have a career. So I knew I wanted something remote and also something that would offer me professional development and growth. And just speaking to the veterans that were in that room doing the info session, it really seemed like a solid group, and they were really invested in getting veterans into this industry because it's an industry that really doesn't, it's like we don't even think about it. We don't know about it when we're getting out. And other other industries, for example, manufacturing, is very quick to take up all the veterans because when you're in manufacturing, you're leading teams and you're supervising workers similar to what you're already doing in the military. So they know that experience that we have. So they snag us up quickly. And then veterans don't even know about this other opportunity out there that, is pretty neat. I learned something every day. So I knew I wanted to be remote, professional development. Um, and I also wanted the purpose. So uh, I ended up interviewing with them, and actually in that interviewing panel, and the person and who ended up being one of my other mentors is he's actually civil affairs. He was at the time he was a civil affairs E6 who had been at SWIC with the reserve company, Ismael Ramirez. I don't know if you've ever met him.
I
He
think
was in the
I've
reserves.
run across him. Yeah.
So he was on the interviewing panel, and I'm sure he played a role in me getting the job as well. I'm sure he advocated for me once, they were looking at all the candidates, and I got the job. And he's still my mentor to this day. Like I followed him around from project to project, and then we even switched companies together. And he's off at a different company than I am now, doing other things. But so went into clinical research, did the project management thing. Now I'm in a director role and became a mom. And then in between there, I also went and got my MBA, just because I realized quickly that I had no business acumen. I'm an international affairs major. Then, going into CA, I mean, you could argue there's some project management in CA, but honestly, like we're not project managers. When I see what I've done now as a project manager versus what we were doing, I'm like, this isn't, I mean, I was able to sell it and got me a job, but yeah, it wasn't really project management. So yeah, I decided to go back to school just to get a little bit more skills and just, I guess, get those three letters to help me when I'm out there trying to get a job.
Yeah. No, that's great because before we started, we were talking about how my process is probably something that I would not recommend for anybody to not network at all.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it myself. I don't need anybody's help. I got it. Now, part of that is because I was born a nerd. I've lived my life as a nerd. I'm going to die a nerd, right? So
Yeah.
I'm working on my PhD, and I'm working on my PhD from Troy, and I started my MBA at UNC Pembroke because I figure out of the time I can do them both at the same time. Why not?
Yeah.
We'll see how that's going to work out.
Gosh, you're gonna lose the new hair you have.
I'll go back and get some more.
Yeah, get some more.
But the I like I told you, I've heard a lot of people say, you know what I want to do? It's like I want a job just like Marilyn. And like I said, it's like there's only one problem with that plan. You're not Marilyn. It's like, so what I would recommend is reach out to her and find out how she did it. So maybe you could copy that. But if you think you're just going to go find a job like she did, it's like, good luck. Because,
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few. I've when I got out, I was bitter when I got out, right? And whenever someone would say, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting out," and they were in CA, most of them were CA, I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, come on, I'll help you. Like, I'll take as much talent as I can from civil affairs." But we had so Erin Hahn came over and she worked with us for a little bit. Or McConaughey at the time. She was McConaughey at the time. Dan Hewitt interviewed with us, and he got an offer, but he went with America instead. Now I think now he's at Cisco. So we had a few. We had a few that interviewed and didn't do so well. Um, I can't remember who the guy was. It's probably best, so I don't name him. But he was CA, and at the interview, he brought like one of his medals that he had gotten, awards he had gotten in one deployment. And like everyone in that room, we were like veterans. The hiring panel was it's a half civilian, half veterans. The vets were just like, oh my God, like, did he really just do that? It's like, so yeah, don't bring an award to show off at your interview. We're going to talk about you behind your.
Was it a single medal or did he bring the full ribbon?
No, he brought the certificate, and I think he brought like the
Oh,
little
oh,
case.
that's even worse. I thought he was
Yep,
like wearing a single medal on his suit or something.
yep. And then we had someone, because in our interview process, we would ask that you present on a project you manage, and we'd ask that you talk about how you manage time, uh, cost, and risk. And this one person just went on and on about being a jump master and, how important being a jump, well, I mean, it is important, right? But she just kept going on and on about being a jump master. And the so on the veteran side, we had different branches. We had Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines, and then we have the civilians who have like no clue what all of this is about and are kind of like, you know, dozing off. But we were just like, why are you focusing so much on being a jump master? Like, and I don't know, I might get flack for this, but I'm like, jump master is not a management nor a leadership school. It's a technical school, right? Very process, and it should be done right, right? You want your stuff to work when you jump. But I'm like, that's not what you need to focus on when you're trying to win a job, on uh, focusing on how you were a jump master and that title. I don't know. But that was another one that was pretty bad. I think that was kind of sticks in my head.
No, that like I was a jump master, what, 17 years? I hated it. There wasn't a second that I enjoyed it.
I hated jumping. I hated it.
So I hated jumping. I'm afraid of heights.
Same. I am terrified of heights.
And people ask, well, why'd you do it? It's like, because I knew that if I jumped out of airplanes, there was a good chance that we were going to spend my entire military career at Fort Bragg. And
Hmm.
my wife didn't want to leave the States. And
Right.
I didn't want my kids to have to move.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I'll
That's a
jump out of
good call.
airplanes.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was in command, um, when Colonel Slider came in, he said he wanted all of his commanders to be jump master. And I told my first sergeant, I looked at him like, well, I guess I'm not going to be in command anytime soon because I'm not going to jump master. So, like, they can get rid of me if they want. Nah, they want me right out my time and get out. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Scared of heights, hate jumping. Only reason I did it is because I really wanted to be civil affairs and it was one of the requirements.
So I don't know those guys who were interviewing, but maybe they were pig-headed too, and maybe they just like didn't find any resources to help them practice interviewing.
Yeah. Now that's one thing I'll say I got lucky with as well. And in my career transition, I really do think a lot of it was so much luck. And like I mentioned before, is luck. I truly believe it's opportunity meeting preparation, right? So I just happened to be prepared when the opportunity arose, but I wasn't out there seeking a job. I really, in the beginning, I really didn't network as much either. Um, but one thing I did do is I went through one of the headhunting firms, Cameron Brooks, which they're pretty good, and they do a really good job at preparing you for their career conference where they bring all these companies that they match you up with, and it's like speed dating with these companies. It's 2 days, it's 2 or 3 days, and you're just going from room to room interviewing with these companies who already have your resume, and they've figured you're a match with them and you could possibly do the job that they're there to recruit for. So that weekend I did about 16 interviews. So by the time I was done, I felt like a pro at interviewing and doing my elevator pitch and selling my story and all that. So by the time I got to interview at TRA, which is the company that I started with, I felt very confident. So that probably, projected to the higher or the interview panel. So it probably helped me a lot when I went in there. And I guess one tip of advice I always give veterans is that when you're interviewing with a company, like treat it like dating. the company I went with gave me a warm and fuzzy. And that's why I ultimately went with him because I felt that warm and fuzzy because you're about to trade 40, depending what industry you go to, if you go into consulting, 80 hours, 40 to 80 hours of your life a week, you're trading for that company, you're spending on the company, right? You're trading your time for money. So make sure it's a place that kind of gives you a good gut feeling and that you feel comfortable because it's a sacrifice. It's time you're going to be away from your family. And you're going to be stressed at some point. You're going to want to like rip your hair out at one point, but so at least make it for something that, or a place where you feel you belong and something that has a purpose.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you brought up the time commitment to that, right? Because getting out of the military, I had this idea of like, man, the military start at 6:30. We all heard that, right? We do more by 9 a.m. than most people do in their whole day, right? That's
Mm,
nonsense. It's nonsense.
yeah.
I was there at Fort Bragg a lot, but I didn't do
Yeah.
that much. I didn't do that much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So going into industry I'm in, so I work and I've only worked since I gotten out for contract research organizations. So what we do is the big pharma companies, think of it like your Pfizer's, Gilead, and even the biotechs, the small biotechs. When they have a drug that they want to get approved uh, for the market, they have to go through clinical trials to get it approved, and it has to be approved by the FDA or EMA in Europe. There's also in Japan, there's another regulatory authority, so they have to run clinical trials and it's cheaper for them to contract them out to organizations like mine because we keep the expertise in house and we have the resources, the tools that they don't have to keep in house. Would it be more expensive for them because they're not always running clinics? Uh, so since you're contracted out and you have different clients that you're working on, your time, you have to keep track of your time in 15-minute increments. So when I was on projects, whatever time I spent on a certain client's project, I would have to, just keep track of it. Like, okay, it's not like clocking in and out, but it's like, okay, today I spent 4 hours on this client and 4 hours on this client. This is how much we're going to bill them. And it really does make you aware of how productive or unproductive you are because, the company is paying for your time while you're doing this. And so I started thinking about like, if the Army put bill rates to soldiers and realized how much time we are wasting, they probably wouldn't make like all company commanders have to go be jump masters, right? And, we're just wasting hours at the drop zone. So yeah, I became very aware of how unproductive we were once I started working in a billable role. That's what we call it.
So I had that discussion where I work because they're trying to implement new processes, right? Which is great. They're
Hmm.
trying to use the fundamentals of project management. That's how we're going to go, and we're using analytics now to identify what areas are we productive and where are we wasting money.
Hmm.
Which sections do we have to charge more for because it's labor
Hmm.
intensive? And I had people, there's veterans that work there. It's like, well, in the military, it's like, whoa, 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 ease up, buddy. In the military, if a job required one person, send 20 of them. Just
Yeah,
send 20 people to get it done. It's like, and it was just throw numbers at something. It's
right.
like, and so you'd have like maybe 5 people working, another 15 just standing around and smoking.
Yep.
It's like, so
Yep.
you can't really compare it. Um,
Yeah. And even so, with the joke like or the comment that we get so much done by 9. So now that I'm in Hawaii, so like for anyone that wants my job, just keep in mind, in order for me to be able to keep my job with this PCS, I usually start my day somewhere between 3 and 5 in the morning, like in a meeting, ready for a meeting, sometimes camera ready at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do it at work? People are like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, look, I've been paid a lot less to do less important stuff when I was in the military. Like, I've had to wake up at 3 a.m. to go just sit at a drop zone. So I have no problem waking up 3 a.m. to actually get work done, be productive, and I'm done by noon, right? And then I have the rest of my afternoon to take a
Yeah.
nap or do whatever.
Yeah. So you're working on East Coast time?
Yeah, for the most part. I do have some flexibility, so if I have any pressing meetings, I'll start my day like at 5 or at 6, and then just work until, I don't know, noon, take a break, and then wrap up at night if I have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, I kept East Coast hours because at my role, if I were to just keep Hawaii hours, I'd miss so much. Like
Yeah.
it would be 3 p.m. by the time I log on, and I wouldn't catch anyone. I couldn't get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough. That's
Yeah, but
that's impressive.
but when people ask me like why didn't I just quit? Well, and I talked a little bit about the struggle having a career being a military spouse because I worked hard to get to this level. So I started at the associate project manager level where you're pretty much like an admin. Think of your training room admin, running reports, doing meeting minutes, just learning the industry, learning the vocabulary. Then I became I became like a regional project manager. So I had a senior project manager over me. So you're basically like the XO to the PM, and you do everything they don't want to do, right? Then I eventually became a project manager and had my own studies. Then I went on to the senior project manager role, and I had global trials. And it's like, you have 500 sites all over the world. You're coordinating with Asia, Latin America, Europe. So I spent a lot of time investing in my career progression, but now we have a move to Hawaii, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't just stop and pick up another job in the same industry in Hawaii. It wasn't going to happen. So I talked with work, and they were okay with me moving to Hawaii and just taking my laptop with me. And we, talked about schedules, somewhat flexible. I promised I'd be available in the business hours as needed. So yeah, I did the move because if otherwise I wouldn't have a job while I'm here. And that's the one thing I didn't realize when I got out was how much being a spouse was going to honestly. It is just because you don't have autonomy about where you're going to move. Now you're not moving. Now you're moving, and it's not because of your own career progression, right? Every time I piece it was because of me. Now it's because of my husband, and he's been a great support too. That's another thing I tell, especially women getting out of the military and their dual military. I tell them to have that conversation with their spouse of what are you willing to do to support my career progression? Because if you don't have that conversation early on, you're going to be in for a big surprise once you realize how much the military is going to dictate your life now that you're out. And Dave, he made some decisions to make sure we stayed at Fort Bragg as much as possible so I could have that time in Raleigh to be able to, build my network, and gain the experience I needed to gain so that now that he's moving, I have the experience and the credentials, the title to be able to jump around. And, if I do need to get another job, it'd probably be a lot easier than when I was an associate PM, right?
No, that's very important, that you guys had that discussion and that you know what you want to do, right?
Hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, Now, what is it? About 3 years out from retirement, I realized I don't want that level of success. That requires a lot of work.
Yeah. And I'm tired now, honestly. If anybody were to ask me, I'm like, I am just tired. I am. So when I first got out, I was very much of the up or out mentality. Like I still had it in me. And so when I got out of the military, I was very angry, and very spiteful with the military. So when I got out, I was like, I'm gonna prove to all of them. I was like, now I'm like, to who? Like, no one's like all of them, right? Um, but I was like, I'm gonna prove to them that I can be just as successful if I get out, right? So I was like, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to try to make as much money as fast as I can. And for for the first 5, 6 years, that's what I kept doing. Like I kept chasing roles and promotions, and then motherhood hit, and I'm like, man, this is hard. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I like, wearing myself out physically and mentally? Like what am I trying to prove now? And I realized that, I really who I need to be the best person for is for my daughter. So I spent all this time in the military and making sure like I was in shape, right? And making sure that I went to airborne school, right? To make sure I was showing up as my best self for the military. Then went to the civilian world and, went and got an MBA, like worked my butt off to make sure I was showing up as my best person for work. But now I'm like, now I have these two daughters. I have to make sure I show up as my best person to them. So my priorities have started to shift. So yeah, now I'm just like, man, I'm tired. And, thank goodness my job is flexible with me. I enjoy what I do. Uh, but the conversation of, do I want to take a sabbatical and be a stay-at-home mom for a bit while they're still little? Like that conversation is still ongoing with my husband, and I mean, we don't know yet what I'm gonna do, but yeah, like priorities have shifted, and if I do take a break, I don't even think I know what I want to do, what I want to be when I grow up. Like, yeah, I haven't
No,
figured it out. So
so that actually brings up a great point where we can segue, because you were mentioning, you sent me some like that article about where you were
oh yeah.
featured, and so can you just touch on that, because I think that actually would help with your sabbatical.
Yeah, so I started a Instagram page that I'm kind of trying to work on it, but very inconsistently because I have so much going on like with the kids. But I started this page called Millionaire Military Spouse, and I picked those words because I figured it would grab attention, like, ooh, millionaire, right? And basically with that Instagram account, what I'm really trying to do is just teach basic personal finance uh, to military families. So a lot of it coming from the resources we already have that maybe we just don't know or don't pay attention to. In the 95th, we had a great resource. I think she's still there. Miss Maureen Middleton. They called her Money Mo. So if you're still in, like, and she's around, go talk to her or whoever the financial readiness counselor is. And she had some like really good advice that at the time I didn't appreciate it. And I didn't appreciate it until I got out of the military and I started getting taxed on all of my income. And I'm like, oh man, this hurts. So, I just started putting away money in my 401k now. I did a little bit in my TSP while I was in, but really um, didn't pay too much attention to it. But also, if you have your money in the G fund, please go ahead and rebalance and or do like the life cycle fund, because so many service members, I've heard stories of they in the TSP, they've kept their money in the G fund, which are government bonds, all their life
Yeah.
for all their time in the military, and they've had like minimal growth compared to what they could have had if they went with the C or the S fund, because S&P 500, I mean, I think it has an average return rate of about 8% a year. Like, there's years where it's bad and years where it's great, but it's about 8% since inception. So, yeah, I'll say that PSA is like, go check your TSP and make sure that you don't have it all in the G fund. Um, so, yeah, so I started that account just to share some personal finance knowledge that I didn't really grasp until I got out when I was already in my 30s. And then I started doing some math and running some hypothetical numbers. If, for example, a lieutenant were to join the military and start contributing about 10% of their income to the TSP, and let's say they bought a house as well, at some point while they were in the military, like they could retire by the time they hit 20 years and they will have $1 million net worth through just simple investing in your TSP or 401k, IRAs, Roth IRAs, and your home, your primary home. I ran the numbers as well on the enlisted side, and I think just TSP wise, you end up somewhere in the high high hundreds of thousands, so not necessarily right at the million, but then, if you have a house that's worth quite a bit, like 300, 400, you get to that millionaire status. So yeah, I started it just to share personal finance advice, and then to just, I guess, the message that it is achievable, with time. The most important thing is time in the market. So the younger you start, the better. Um, and if you haven't started, I mean, it's never too late. You can always start. Like I started really paying attention to this when I was 29, 30, and we hit the $1 million net worth in, I want to say, 2022. Like we didn't even realize it. I was just doing numbers one day. And I was like, it's pretty cool. And it's not like I have $1 million, sitting in my bank account and I'm
Yeah.
gonna go live the baller life. No, it's like, 401ks, TSPs, we have like a rental property, it's like in all different places. Like, but I'm definitely not living like a
Yeah.
millionaire, or I still buy my clothes at Costco.
No, that's an excellent point that you bring up because you know, I saw that and I started running our numbers like, oh man, we hit that too. It's like
See?
I don't want to tell my wife because I might end up dead, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I also wanted to kind of change perception that, you're in the military and you're broke, or not necessarily broke, but you can't have that sort of net worth. I mean, it is very possible. And then and when you start to add in, if you get a VA disability pension, that's tax-free money right there, and that's an annuity for life, and then you put on top your military pension. So yeah, when staying in for 20 is not a bad deal, if you play your cards right. I will say though, if anyone's on the fence about getting out and they're around, the 10-year mark, or they've already made major, at that point, I mean, I hate to say it, at that point, I'm usually like, just stay in, because in order for you to make the same take home pay that you made as a major, um, in the civilian world, your salary is going to have to be like higher than 150, with taxes and all that.
Yep.
And to get a job paying that much, usually you need tenure, and it's impossible, right? But you're going to have to work hard networking and making sure you sell yourself when you're interviewing and that you have the right preparation. But it's sold out. I mean, you could go be a GS 14, 15, right? And you'll make that type of money. But yeah, it's very difficult. So whenever I've had people that are like in the low teens or like our majors, I'm like, yeah, just stay in. Like honestly, like just do yourself a favor and just stay in.
So even with that, with the GS 13 or 14, like how many of those jobs are available now with all the
Right.
federal
Yeah.
cuts, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've even thought about switching to the government side. And one time there was this position for like a GSA project manager, and I applied for it, and I don't know, I kind of did like a half-ass federal resume. I'm not good at federal resumes at all. They're a whole different animal. They came back and told me that I didn't have enough project management experience. I'm like, I've been a project manager for 7 years. I'm like, excuse me. But yeah, that was just funny. But I'm not good at federal resumes. And that's one thing that has come up in your previous episodes that I think is a really good point to highlight, is that you need to tailor your resume to the industry and the position you're applying for. Because if you don't do that, that resume is not going to make it through the algorithm or whatever system they're using. And also, if you can find someone that can refer you or put that resume in front of the hiring manager, that's even better. So one thing I ask veterans to do is, if you're interested in a certain company or industry, see if there's other veterans there that you could reach out to and just have like a quick connect, like, hey, would you mind talking to me about your industry, your job? I'm interested. And if you have a good conversation with them, most of them wouldn't mind being your referral, right? And sending you the link or taking your resume and in front of and putting it in front of that recruiter or hiring manager. But yeah, the key piece is just make sure that resume is tailored to that job you're applying for.
Yeah, definitely. The networking, the networking can't be said enough.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, when I first came out, I had, I think, 4 job offers, so I had to stop and think about which one I wanted to accept. But what I didn't mention is how many applications did I submit,
Hmm.
right? When I first started looking for a job, easily 80 applications were submitted.
Yeah.
And to get 4 job offers, I was grateful for all 4 of them, but that's a lot of job applications.
Hmm. Yeah. And now in this economy, I can't even imagine. I have colleagues that have been laid off, or I learned this new term recently. It's called made redundant. So that's, I guess, the corporate speak for getting laid off. And it again, these are people with a decade or more experience in the industry, super smart, and they're having a hard time finding the next thing just because of the way the industry is right now. R&D budgets are a bit smaller in the pharma side, so that translates to us because we're not getting new work, new trials.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it, right? Like people don't understand that the military has a budget, right?
Hmm.
You're gonna get paid on the 1st and
Yeah.
the 15th. You're gonna get paid.
Hmm.
Out in the civilian world, like we got to keep bringing the clients in.
Yeah.
If not, well, I
That's
guess
true.
we're gonna have to set some people just stay home for a while.
Hmm. Yeah. And, I talked about moving into this new role that's a little bit more flexible, but the truth is now I I'm not billable. I'm not in a role where I'm billing my time to a client. So I'm part of that fat. When they start trimming fat, like that's the role I'm in. When I'm when I'm doing like my performance evals or talking to my boss, I need to make sure that it is very, very evident that the salary they're paying me, like I've earned it and I've like brought in much more savings or created much more revenue than what it is they're paying me, because I know that when they start looking at who needs to go, it's roles like mine because we're not directly bringing in client work.
Yeah, I didn't realize how cutthroat it was out in the for
Yeah,
what
it
it
can be.
whatever gripes I had about being in Cell Block 8 about
Yeah.
competing for promotions is like jumping Jehoshaphat's. I did not realize it was going to be like that out in the civilian world too.
Yeah, and you talk about. I was talking with a coworker about just the process that we wanted to change, and they said, "Yeah, that team over there, um, they've done some reductions, and they're nervous more are coming." So they're really not sharing a lot of information because they're worried that like whoever they share it with, that's the person that's going to replace them, and they're going to get let go. So it's like that level, and that's not always healthy, but I didn't realize it was like that either. Um, and even when it comes to like building your team when you're a project manager and you're putting in your resource requests to come work on your project, you better have the budget to back it up. And the resourcing team will tell you, where's your budget? Show me like where are the numbers that your client can pay for this resource, because it's all about like the billable hours and how much revenue can you bring in, and then of course then we talk about costs and then we get to the profits. But yeah, it's all about like being accountable for your time because that time is bringing in revenue.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned in civil affairs we said that we were project managers, right?
Yeah.
Uh, There's also a difference, and I try to explain this to people. Like in South America, we had that big giant American flag behind us, said
Right.
U.S. Embassy.
Yeah, and people want to talk to us, right? Yeah.
People were jumping through hoops. Yeah, you want it, you got it.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. on the outside. It's hard.
Yeah,
You have to figure it out. Every penny
yeah,
has to be accounted for.
right. And I mean, talking about, when we get down right to Colombia or Peru and they want to work with us, right? Because we bring the money. Then, when you're out there in the civilian world in your job, there isn't like, I don't know, a company there isn't companies that's like just waiting for the veterans to get out and let's go hire them, right? Who cares? Maybe I have one boss who's very kind and will ask me about, my stories from the military, but he's really the only one that's interested. But yeah, no one cares about your time in the military. They all think, I don't know, we do the same stuff, like just go and shoot guns. They really don't know what we do.
Yeah, no. I told the first site I worked at, it was with, and that's what's funny is he was in the Air Force, right?
Hmm.
He was, I forgot what he got out. He retired as an E7, right? And he's asking, "What did you do?" It's like, I was in civil affairs, and we were talking about something one day. Forgot what it was, like muddy, right? And it's like, yeah, this reminds me of being in SEER school when they made you roll around in the mud, right?
Hmm.
And he didn't say anything, but he came back the next day. It's like I could not figure for the life of me, I could not figure out why somebody who took pictures would have to go to SEER school. It's like I said, civil affairs, fool, not public affairs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, yeah, I had to look it up. It's like I didn't even know you guys did that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's not impressive, but no, yeah, I had to go to SEER school. So
Yeah, like I don't even know how to explain it when people ask me what I did in the military. I like the shortest answer I always give is like, oh, we give out humanitarian assistance, win hearts and minds, like instead of trying to go into like the whole spiel of it. But yeah, like I don't even know what to say. A lot of times I just said, it's like, oh, I was a logistics officer, then I did some deployments here and there.
I just tell people the United States government sent me around the world to give out soccer balls and teddy bears.
Yeah, yep.
And it's not a lie.
Yeah, it is. It's not. Yeah, I mean, we gave out book bags too, and then like the medicines and med cap. But yeah, like it's some cool stuff. But surprisingly, my time in quartermaster, so I wasn't logistics, quartermaster before any like loggies out there. Like I'm like, you didn't go with triple C, so you're not a logistician. When I was a quartermaster, those experiences actually have helped me the most now that I'm in the civilian world. So my time in staff as quartermaster, my deployment to Haiti, and just managing the logistics of field services in Haiti, I think that were the foundation of where I am now. From civil affairs, where it's helped me is the relationship building. Like I whenever I'm going to meet someone new at work and I'm going to have a meeting with like someone who I really do treat it like a KLE. Like I'll be on their LinkedIn, like seeing like, okay, who's this person? Like, what do I know about? What can I find out about them? So the relationship building, the networking piece, right? Even though you don't like it, but you still have to do it. So the importance of that part has helped me in the soft skills, I guess. But yeah, and HHC command helped me in the sense of um, leading in a matrixed organization, right? Because in HHC, especially at brigade, like no one's listening to the commander. You're really just trying to influence the sections to like, please get green on your metros, right? Or please show up to this
Yeah.
detail. So it helped me in that sense, going into to being a project manager because you don't own any of your resources as a PM. Like you have no authority over them. So it helped me in that sense.
Yeah. So what I learned from the military, and this was because of you, Fernando and Al, I wanted to give you a shout out, but I'm going to do it a little bit early. Um,
Hmm.
when I was in the military, when I was in the 82nd, I try to explain to people I was in the most hated squad, in the most hated platoon, in the most hated company, in the most hated battalion, in the most hated brigade, in all of the 82nd. It's like our first sergeant hated my squad so much he took all the 249s, because I used to fix
Hmm.
the tow missile systems. So we
Yeah.
had second platoon was electronics, right? First was the mechanics, and then third was the warehouse. So he took all the 249s and he gave them to our squad. It's like, well, shouldn't they be distributed out throughout
Yeah.
the company? No, you're all going to carry them. Okay, fine by me.
All right.
We'll be safe. You guys are probably going to
Yeah.
die, but we'll be all right.
Yeah, you'll be good.
And then going over to the cell block 8,
Hmm.
I don't know. I got in trouble for drinking in Paraguay, and after that happened, I was a leper, and so I was just bitter. I was just mad because no matter what I did, that's what I was remembered for, just being a
Hmm.
drunk. And there were a lot of drunks in that battalion. And now my job is easier because I remember how you, Al, and the patron saint Fernando treated me.
Yeah, Fernando.
And you guys were just treated me as a normal person. And I wasn't treated that way anywhere else.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, because I always just try to give people the benefit of the doubt, until they prove me wrong, right? And I I learned quickly as a lieutenant that you don't know, and I still approach life and work this way, like you don't know as much as you think you know. Like, and I always joke, like, hey, the project manager usually is the dumbest person in the meeting. So I've always, really relied on just like my teammates and really like the NCOs, because I'm not gonna lie, in the 98th, the NCOs run that battalion because the team leaders are just coming through, right? And you're doing your team time, going to move on to other things. And anyone who didn't realize and didn't see it quickly that the NCOs were running the show, like they were just an idiot. So yeah, I just give everyone the benefit of the doubt and just treat them like decent people. And here's the other thing too, right? I didn't realize how toxic it like not the entire 95th, I guess. I don't want to be general, but at least my time in HHC and 98th, how toxic it was until I got out and saw what a normal working environment was like. And then when I had daughters, oh my gosh, when I became a mom and I just started thinking about my daughters being in some of the situations I was in, I'm like, oh my God, like that was so toxic. Like the dreaded MRX, that one MRX where like I believe everyone was a heat casualty, right? I think about, just everything that happened that day. And I think about how I walked out of there just feeling like such a failure because I got fired that day because, I physically could not make it through that obstacle course. And Sergeant Major made me go up and fall off of that cargo net, like I don't know how many times. But I came out of there like feeling like such a failure, right? And blaming myself for everything that had gone wrong. And then I just started thinking about like, oh my gosh, like if that were to happen to my daughter, I would be so mad. But I didn't realize the toxicity until, I left and in hindsight. And then there was that board that the commander in Delta Company that the commander had where he had all the team leaders' names written down and
Oh,
it was a ranking, right? And depending on like what you said or what you did on a given day, like he would like move your name around. I thought that was weird to begin with when I joined the company, but now that I'm out, I'm like, that would probably be an HR complaint
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah, definitely. I love that about that sergeant major, the zero deployment sergeant major.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like it's like, how did you go 30 years and never
yeah,
deploy anywhere?
yeah. Yeah. And then, that same command team reinstated me like a couple weeks later after the technical MRX. And I remember going in. So they told me I was taking over the team and now going to Colombia, and then I had to brief the brigade commander the next day. So, I mean, I did what, any team leader would do is get spun up on the mission. I studied my butt off that night, and then I went and briefed the next day. And that sergeant major, and even like the battalion commander, they were like, wow. They're like, how did you pull that off? And I'm like, I know my job. Like,
Yeah.
what happened at the tactical MRX has nothing to do with my ability to do my job. So yeah, they were just like, and then yeah, that sergeant major was like, where was that like 2 weeks ago? I'm like, it was here. It was in my brain.
Yeah. It's like one sergeant major. It's real easy to bitch and complain about people when you're sitting off in the shade drinking all the water. So when we get done road marching 6 miles in 100-degree weather and 100% humidity, there's no water for us to drink.
Yeah,
And you tell us,
yeah.
keep moving, move out. Awesome.
And I had a pretty nasty fall during that MRX, and since that since that day, I've had like this just pain in my shoulder and upper back. And I always thought it was like a knot, or and Thor treated it for a little bit, but it wasn't until this year that I finally got an MRI from the VA, and it turns out it's two bulging discs that I have. And I was like, oh, that's a nice little memento I have
Yeah.
from the 98.
So I need both of my shoulders replaced, my hip, and my left knee. And I remember everybody
You're gonna
said, well, you're just fat and out of shape. It's like, no, these shoulders didn't go out like on the day I retired.
right.
It's like this shoulder, I know it went out, started going bad at the IED blast in 2008. And
Mhm.
then this one started going bad because I was trying to compensate for this one.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you're just fat and out of shape. It's like, no, my body is literally breaking down.
Yeah. And the older you get, it's just the more evident it becomes. And that's another thing I've been struggling with. Is who was I talking to? Oh, it was my therapist. Because I've become very, very open about challenges and just seeking help and mental health being important, because it is like people. We try to say it's not when we're in the military, but it is. It impacts your physical health too. So my therapist, she was telling me, he's like, yeah, with veterans, a lot of times you'll struggle realizing how much your body just breaks down, and it feels like it's overnight, right? But you just don't realize how much you put your body through. And I'm starting to feel it. I'm creeping up on 40, and then again, having kids does unspeakable things to your body. And I'm just like, wow, like I am not the Marilyn I was 10 years ago. And I can't believe it's been over 10 years now. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's brutal, and your body does wear down, so take care of it. If you're still in, if you're not, make sure you get checked out, because you don't know what's just compensating, right? And then it just gets worse.
Yeah. And, I still run, but there's no reason for me to try to jack up, 500 pounds
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
wife
I like.
hasn't, my wife hasn't all of a sudden put on, 300 pounds, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I don't need to lift that much weight.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what it is that I like. I realize I don't like running, so I'm not really doing that. I go on my little walks nowadays, so that's about it.
Yeah, I guess it's different, huh? It's like when I was got to go out to Hawaii for 6 months. It's like I couldn't run enough. It's like this is just paradise. It's heaven.
Yeah,
But I also don't live there. I
yeah,
was only there for 6 months. So
yeah, yeah. Now the kids kind of like, I can go out and run, right? But with the stroller, I'm really just running around my neighborhood. Yeah, the kids put a damper on that. I like hiking, so whenever I can, I have done that. But yeah, it's just walks, and I still enjoy lifting, but not, to the extent that I did back when I was in the army.
yeah, I can't really see either one of us like having to throw on a 35-pound rucksack to go to a
Yeah.
meeting or something.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm good. And then the other part too is just trying to figure out, like, what do I like to do besides working, right? Because I already said, like, I spent so much time, right, trying to work my butt off and get somewhere, right? And now I'm just stuck trying to figure out, like, what actually do I enjoy doing besides drinking wine? But like, what do I actually enjoy? Like, what hobbies could I possibly have? So that's my struggle right now. I guess like trying to figure out like what do I really enjoy? What do I want to do for me instead of just trying to do it to for something or for somebody else, right?
So I don't know if you can see. I'll move my camera around, but let's see. So that shelf over there is a
Uh-huh.
bunch of anime stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I go to like the Comic Cons
Mm-hmm.
with the other geeks. I can't be there too long because my PTSD and my anxiety like starts revving up. So, but I can go for about
Mm.
like 5 hours. I can't do 4 days,
Yeah, yeah.
But I got my guitars over here.
Yeah.
Started taking
I
that up
see
again,
that too. Oh, that's pretty cool.
and just trying different
Yeah.
things. I really felt, well, you might not be able to do this, but my kids are grown now, right? My youngest is
Mm-hmm.
23. She's getting her MBA from UNC Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really found that I like sleeping in on the weekend
Yeah.
because I couldn't do that in the military because even had to get up, right? Had to take care of the
Mm-hmm.
kids, had to like do
Right.
this, and that. And even on the weekends up at 6:30 or 6 in the morning.
Right. Yeah. I like sleeping in. And actually, I am able to do that mainly on Sundays because, like I said, I'm very, very lucky that my mom is staying with us. And between my mom and my husband, since I'm waking up like at 3 in the morning, they let me sleep in on the weekends. But mainly, I think it's on Sundays that I'm able to just sleep in and just kind of come out of the room like at 9, 10, because I'm just like, this is just my me time. This is my alone time. Thank you for letting me sleep in.
So I had quite a few veterans tell me, it's like, how can you do that? I can't do that. It's like, well, just like when you went to the range the first time, right? You had to practice.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't able to sleep in the first weekend I retired. Just had to like, hey, I'm just going to go back to sleep. Like, why am I getting up?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you just have to practice. You have to practice being lazy, I guess.
Hmm.
I view it
Yeah.
as
I mean,
me time.
yeah, and you don't realize how, like, I guess, institutionalized we are after we get out and we start seeing, like, what normal looks like.
Yeah. So we're going on about 57 minutes here. And so try to keep the episodes at about an hour. Because
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw that one. I did an episode with Georgie and with Elias, and we went for 2 hours. And I think
Yeah.
I think like I don't know, 20 people listened to it because it was just too long.
And it's a good one. So yeah, I'll give a shout out to George's episode. He gave some really good advice. Like that was some solid transition advice. And I'll admit, I don't think I was a fan of George when I was a team leader, because he was our CMO. I can't remember. He was like above us somehow in the chain of command. And I think I might have had a few disagreements with him. So I wasn't a fan, but now like going back, listening to this episode, I was like, that's pretty solid advice. So if anyone hasn't listened to it, just it's fast. So just put it at like 1.5 speed and go through it a little faster. But it was really good advice.
Yeah, and if you have to replay it, go ahead because Georgie's a fast talker,
Yeah.
and so you might not catch everything that he's saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I just wanted to give you, Al, and Fernando a shout out. Like you, all three of you, what you showed me in the military has helped me on the outside as being a project manager. I think just working with the people, because I'm on site, so just working with the
Hmm.
people, talking to them, like actually finding out how can I help them achieve their goals. Because I don't like money, whatever. Like
Hmm.
I need money, but that's not my driving force.
Right.
Like I want to see people succeed, right? Like these
Hmm.
young kids that are like 20, 18, 19,
Yeah.
they're going into construction. It's like, is that what you want to do? Where do you want to go?
Hmm.
And you three help me. I find myself stopping and thinking, it's like, what would these three, how would they approach this? And
Oh.
and that's how I do it. Because if I go with my natural instincts, like, well, screw them, just fire them, right? So
Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, I didn't realize I had done that, but I'm glad I was able to help in some way. And what the good times, right, that I did have in CA, they weren't all bad, but you when you guys handed over the Peru mission to us, to my team, like you guys left us like a good mission, and that was like the best like impression I had of CA, and I was just so happy with it. But then of course, right, then you hand it over to the next team and they just like garbage. And unfortunately that's what ends up happening uh most times. So yeah, like you gave me like a good first impression of my deployments, and that's what I was expecting. And then it just didn't work out like that. The following.
And that sometimes that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and what you mentioned about Georgie. So for me, 3 years out now, like a lot of
Hmm.
that, there's only one person in the military that if I ever see that dude, I'm going to start running full speed. I'm going to Superman punch that dude into next week. And it's nobody in the 95th, nobody in civil affairs.
Oh,
It's
okay.
somebody from the 82nd.
Oh, wow.
So, but all
Yeah,
that is left in the past because that was a different life.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And I we all still have that connection, right, of being in the military, having been veterans, and you don't want to see anyone struggle because the transition is hard, and there's you can prepare for it, but you just won't know how it is until you go through it. And not everyone can be as lucky as having a job offer, moving into a job right after you get out. And it's a punch in the gut, right? When you're putting yourself out there, your best foot forward, and companies are saying thanks but no thanks, right? So yeah, you don't want to see people struggle. And if anyone ever wants to chat with me about transition, if I do that. I volunteer with the Honor Foundation, so I'll do resume reviews and do mock interviews. So happy to help.
Okay. So if you're a veteran out there, if you want to get in contact with Marilyn, you can reach me at my email, arantoniorodriguez98@gmail.com. You can leave a message on wherever you can find this podcast.
Hmm.
I have a new logo now. My face is
Yeah.
no longer my logo. I decided to take this podcast a little bit more serious, so I had to change the logo.
Well,
And so, if you're listening out there, if you're transitioning out, just remember you have something that makes you unique. You have a skill that makes you special. Identify what it is, maximize it to its fullest potential, and I know you'll be successful. So, until next
hmm
time, zot, 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 and roll tide.